Hi, I'm Marisa Janaku.
And I'm Michelle Wungsmanawi.
And welcome to By Association, a show where we talk about the connection between creative entrepreneurs and their collective drive to bring a product or brand with purpose to the consumer. A connection usually starts with a drink, and this is how we'll start our show, sharing a bottle of wine or champagne, and understanding why this bottle is special to our guest.
Just gonna get comfortable because I got shit
Get comfortable,
to say.
man. Great. No, well, welcome to our first episode. We're going to see if this thing works and if people like to listen to it. For our first episode, we have Safi Graauw.
Yes.
Someone I got to know, I would say, 10, 15 years ago. We're getting a bit older. So, Safi, I'd like you to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do.
Well, my name is Safi Graauw. I'm a director. I have an earth sciences background. And what I try to do is steer the commercial world in terms of advertising, steer it towards sustainability and purpose.
Oh, fantastic. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. But what we're going to do is we're going to start, of course, by having some wine. That's the whole idea here. But you brought a wine. Tell us about it and why it's important to you.
The bottle you guys have in front of you right now might be the most important bottle of my life. This bottle tells a story of a woman born in a rural Suriname, a place and stage where wine wasn't a commodity at all. It was more than a luxury, and that woman turned wine into a commodity for herself.
Okay.
Yeah, and that woman was my mother.
Oh,
Who passed, sadly. But she managed to make wine a commodity where it wasn't. And I think making something out of nothing in that way is an important feature in a human being. So
and how did she do that? How did she turn it into commodity?
Well, she had a goal. If you come from a very small rural village in Suriname and you manage to get an education, a form of education, then that's a feat in itself. Mm-hmm. But if you then move to the city, get a job, get a home, then move to the Netherlands, get a job, get a home, then move your kids to a white suburb, and make wine a commodity, I think that's it. You've reached what you're supposed to be reaching in life.
Cool. And this bottle specifically, is that the bottle that she found in Suriname and brought here, or what's this?
After she got to know wine, this became her favorite wine to drink. So basically, just imagine me being a teenager, coming home from karate lessons, opening the door, seeing my mom enjoy a TV show or enjoy anything, and just have this bottle of wine right in front of her. I mean, this is, for me, you won.
and this bottle of wine, did you have to wait till you were 18 to taste it, or did your mother take you on that journey earlier?
Well, she kind of put me on this journey earlier. I think I was about 15, and she was like, "Boy, come here. Taste this." And for me, it was completely this bitter sensation of a drink. I didn't know what wine was supposed to taste like. I had no idea. I'm not a wine connoisseur at this point. I don't even know how to drink red wine. But that moment of my mother teaching me, "Hey, this is good. You should taste this."
Yeah.
When I was 15, I learned that it was bitter, and I didn't like the taste of it. But after she passed, I was just like, okay, let me just try this. And then I came to understand, oh, this is what she was tasting, this is what she was looking for, this is why she loved this wine so much. So for me, this bottle of wine and that first time that she made me taste it, compared to the way that I'm looking at her now, and her making something out of nothing, changing wine into a commodity is just amazing.
Oh, cool. I say let's open one up, because I want you to take us through exactly what you said about what you taste and that journey you've taken once you learned to appreciate it. So
let's go.
I have 3 glasses spoon for Michel
Yes,
as well
sir.
over there.
So cool.
Thank you, sir.
Because I think that's important. Because I think you're saying basically that journey she went through to change it to commodity also influenced you in a sense.
Yes. Definitely influenced me because this is something I found out later in life. After she passed, that's when you kind of self-reflect on your life. And I think the most important lesson her passing taught me was that life goes fast. Do what you want to do. And what she wanted to do was make wine a commodity.
Yeah.
And she did. And she enjoyed it, every last drop. And, well, these are the moments in which you realize, okay, what is it that I like? What is it that I like to do? What is it that I want to do?
Yeah.
And that's where creativity came in.
So when did it? So I mean, when did your mother pass away? When was that switch that you decided that life is short, I want to do something else?
I was 22 when she passed.
Okay.
And, well, before...
And you're now?
I am now 32.
32, so 10 years ago. Yep.
10 years ago. But you're at a place and a space where you take things for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're 22 or 21 or 20 or 19, you don't really think about the how fast paced life is. You don't really think about the fact that when somebody tells you do what you want to do, that's a real that's something real somebody's telling you.
Yeah.
But if you lose the thing that you hold most dear, well, that's when your whole way of thinking just shifts.
Yeah.
And that's where you start thinking for yourself, and that's where the entrepreneurial spirit came from.
Is that also the point where you switch from earth science to wanting to be a director, or?
No, I first started a little blog called Cavemen.
That's where we met?
That's where we met, yeah. That was just a way for me to escape. Escape reality, just make things that you think are beautiful, recreate a beautiful world. That was me doing that. And being a director, I grew into being a director.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when you lose everything that you hold dear, and you basically start rethinking, well, that's when you grasp something. How do you say it? I'm thinking how I say this in English. The first thing you grab hold on to, for me, that was story. So the first thing I grabbed onto was story, and I wasn't a director. It was just somebody holding on to story, trying to escape this form of reality. Mm-hmm. And I learned that that's what directing is.
Yeah.
So for me, it started. You lose your fundament, and you grab hold of something. Mm-hmm. Something that feels good, something that you can escape into, and that was story. And well, then from there you develop story. You learn how to work with story. You learn how to work with colors. You learn how to work with visuals, and that's how you become a director. But I think I just held on to this idea of story.
And it all started at Cavemen, like doing a blog.
Yeah, it started with doing a blog. It started with writing, just trying to escape from your reality into another one.
And where does the name Cavemen come from?
Cavemen was just imagine me sitting
in your
at
cave.
home, basically in a cave, which is me sitting at home. I had this little Tumblr blog, and I was just collecting pictures of things I like. And it was landscapes, of course, because I was studying earth sciences at that time, environmental sciences. It was landscapes, and then it was a bit of fashion on the other side. And to connect the landscapes to the fashionable persons that I'd post, I started writing stories about these fashionable men walking these poetic, fashionable men walking these landscapes. And at a certain point, I was thinking, okay, they need a name. And I came up with Cavemen.
Cool.
And well, that's how the blog started, and then we made a film, and from there it went.
Because this was during when you were still studying, right? You hadn't even graduated yet.
No, I hadn't graduated. I was still studying, just trying things, basically trying to escape the reality that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to escape, and then, well, Cavemen came along. I started thinking, holding on to this idea of story, and then you make a film, and then you put everything in there.
Yeah.
And then, things start to happen. You can't really explain what happened, but the film went viral for that time. People posted it, people liked it, and you just ride that energy.
Yeah.
Just ride that wave. You just go with whatever comes your way.
So I'd say maybe this film was, in fact, sort of like your first expression, and as an artist, you could say, more as an artist than really a director. And of course, that moment came when you had to switch from more, doing things for the fun of it, and you noticed, look, I'm studying earth science here. Yeah. This is where my passion's at, and here's where my passion is. When was that? When was that moment, or did it naturally flow? Like, when did it go to say, you know what, earth science isn't for me, this is for me? When did that happen?
Well, the opposite happened. Mm-hmm. So Cavemen was a success. You learn how to make films for brands. You learn how to make films for so many other people that you kind of forget yourself. And that's where earth sciences knocked. It was like, hey, this is not you.
So you're already making a lot of films for brands, of course.
We're making films for brands, Van Gils, Gant. We did one for Converse. It was more content based, so it wasn't like a campaign or an actual brand film, but it was more content based. But it was one of the first times that I really got in touch with the business side of making films. And then once again, you just go with the flow. People come to you and say, hey, I want you to make a film for me. You're like, yeah, sure, why not? But then if you do that the first time, you're like, oh, I learned. You do it the second time, you're like, oh, we could do this better. You do it the third time, you're like, oh, okay, maybe if we could get it bigger. And this thought process starts.
Yeah.
And then when you've done that enough times, you'll start to ask, like, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And that's where earth science is not.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, Safi, is this you? Are you the person that sells jackets through film, or are you the person that tells a story and makes sure people's perceptions change? Yeah. And that happened in 2015. So 2013 we started the first Cavemen expression, I'll say. And we rode that wave till about 2016, I think.
Who's we, by the way?
Me and two other brothers, Christian and Boudewijn Grammer. Mm-hmm. Christian I knew from high school, and we actually sat in a train ride together because I was studying environmental sciences and he was in film school. And we rode the train from Amsterdam Sloterdijk to he went to Rotterdam, I went to Delft. Yeah. And that's also where I got introduced into this idea of creativity, into this idea of film, because he was using me as a model in his project. And if you have a scientific perception of things, that's when you just start asking questions. You don't just stand in the light and smile. You start asking questions. Hey, what's light? What's creativity? Why are you using this lens? What kind of camera are you using and why? Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, I was going through all these types of excursions in my environmental sciences classes, and you get to see these landscapes that are just beautiful, and that's where you start making suggestions. Hey, Chris, maybe you should try the woods. Yeah. I was in this great place. Maybe you should try it. And that was a very important moment for me to make my first steps into even being creative. Mm-hmm. And Christian Grammer, which I knew from high school, and his brother Boudewijn Grammer, they just grew up with creative people and creative things around them.
Yeah.
And me coming from a Surinamese background, where your parents, your family, and the people around you are just focused on surviving and focused on this rugged idea of becoming a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist, something tangible for them.
All right.
And well, here you have two guys coming from this creative surrounding, and then you have one guy wanting to be a creative, which he's not at this point, but exploring the creative world. I think the combination of those two brought us together. And well, Christian took a look at the Tumblr blog that I had, and he was like, yo, we gotta make a film. Make a film. You've created this world of cavemen, of landscapes, of beautiful people.
So you could translate basically your story.
Your
storytelling, and you were helping.
It was a place for me to indeed make it tangible. You know, here it is in my head. I'm just writing.
Yeah.
Now, Christian, he was the person that made it tangible for me.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of I think, the success of it, because his sense of film was exactly how I was feeling at the time. So it fit like a glove.
Right.
And that's I think why people thought it was beautiful.
And this was 2015 or earlier?
This is 2012.
2012, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were still experimenting, just being creative, and you said the turning point was 2015.
The turning point for me becoming a bit more conscious about who I am as a creator was in 2015.
Yeah.
Because, well, you know, I've had made all these commercial films. I'd explored a little bit, and that's where, you know, this scientific curiosity just starts poking you in the back.
Right.
You know? And in 2015, that's when I was like, okay, who am I? Am I the guy that sells jackets through film, or am I the guy that at least tries to change the perspective? And well, I'm the latter. So I'm the second one. And that's when I met, in that year is when I went to this Congress. Yeah. I think. It was this event of all these bloggers coming together. And it was an event about landscape restoration.
Okay.
Yeah. And bloggers and landscape this is exactly how I felt when I went. I was like, what is this?
What's that combo? How does that combo work?
Yeah. You know? And well, I went. I sat. It was me and like 20, 30 other people just ready. #ready.
Yeah.
You know? Just hashtag ready.
You're a blogger, hashtag.
Yeah, and then these guys come up the stage and they just start telling us about landscape restoration in East Africa.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna paint this picture. Just imagine 29 people looking in their phones and one on the tip of their chair.
Yeah.
That was me. I was like, how, what, where, when, who, and why didn't I know this? I asked so many questions during that presentation that Vessel, the guy that was presenting, he told me, Safi, shut up. You know, let me finish, dude.
What was this Congress? It was basically to tell the story and to get these bloggers to, you know, tell the story further.
Yeah.
But their interest wasn't there.
I think this was one of the first NGOs that understood the power of communication. And they understood that they needed these bloggers to tell their story in order for it to reach more people.
Because they understood the times had changed, how to get the message out there, right?
Yes. They understood that times had changed. They understood that this new digital idea of an influencer was a powerful one. And they used it.
This was 2015. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and they're the guys from Justdiggit, which is an NGO that works on landscape restoration in East Africa. I was on the tip of my chair just asking questions. How this and how that, and what satellite images did you use? Landsat 876, what were you doing? And he said, shut up. We'll talk after this. We'll talk. Shut up now.
It's getting too complicated for the rest.
I was getting comfortable asking questions.
Yeah.
They were getting comfortable answering them, but we forgot about the people that were actually supposed to like communicate it.
Yeah.
And then after the presentation, we just had a chat. We talked for 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
And then 2 months later, I was in Kenya filming a documentary about the socio-economic benefits of the Maasai people for landscape restoration.
Perfect.
And, it just filled me with everything I needed.
So was that your first piece you could have said that really combined, had that creativity you wanted, and also to tell a story and to change people's perceptions in a way to understand the earth, you could say in a sense. So this was the video that really you felt was that turning point.
Everything. It changed everything. I mean, just imagine, I'm not saying I felt stuck, but just imagine the only answer to a question that you have is a commercial one. And here's this organization that understands the commercial purpose, understands the imagery, understands the story, and then melts it all together and then sends you off on the adventure of your life. Basically, you're going to Kenya, you're driving towards Mount Kilimanjaro to meet the Maasai and work with them for 10 days. Like that was, for me, that was
sounds crazy.
It was insane.
You have to tell us more about that. But I want to go to the wine, because I poured the wine. The story is important. But I'd like you to to tell us what the wine is, and so the name of the wine, so everyone can know what we're trying out here, and also tell us about it.
We're gonna go back to me being a small kid in my mom's living room. This is a Baron de Valery. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right, because I'm not a wine company.
Doesn't matter
at all.
Doesn't matter.
But my mom was your stereotypical laughing woman, strict but just laughing all the time. And she had this obsession with her sisters, where they would take her car, go to Germany, buy a bunch of wines, come back and just drink it. And then, laugh, drink. In Dutch you would say gezelligheid, but
coziness.
Yeah, this idea of coziness. Just her friends, her sisters. They all just went to Germany, got a bunch of wines, started tasting, eat cheese, do whatever they like to do. And this is the wine that got bought the most. That was it my phone? I hope not.
It's fine.
Okay.
We're good.
But this is the wine that got bought the most. Baron de Valery. My mom fell in love with it.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to tell you, just taste it. It is, for me, it is the most accessible red wine up until now. Because it's just filled with this sweetness.
Yeah. 2018 is what
nice.
I'm thinking.
Did you explore other red wines and then came back to this one, or?
Yeah.
Right.
This is what. So I have a nephew that is like a wine connoisseur, and he's like my big example. He's the guy who has 3 kids, family first, just has that warmth and coziness around him. And it doesn't matter how successful you are as a human being, if you don't get to develop this warmth and coziness around you, you failed. And for me, that was always this my aspiration to become like him. And he was a wine connoisseur, and he understood wines, learned from his mom, and he tried to make me drink red wines, and it didn't work. He's like, yeah, taste this, put your nose in, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, it's bitter.
But that's why this appeals to you more, I guess. It's a lot more, you get a lot more of the sweetness from the fruit through it.
Yeah. I think because, me and him, we explored. We looked into these different types of wine. I'm just like, yeah, I'm sorry, but I like this one the most. Right. Yeah.
So for you, because I would say then it's not really about you love wine, but you love this product.
Yes.
This is what means.
Yes.
So it could have been a completely different product, but does that meaning behind the wine actually, how you could say, build upon what you're tasting and give you a lot more fulfillment?
Yes. It just gets me back to when I was 12. It's that simple.
When you had your first sip.
Yes. It's actually that simple. It just gets me back to my elderly home. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so when I was little, my mom had one day and she wasn't cooking on that day. That day was Saturday, and you just find out what you're going to do. This is my day. Mm-hmm. And that's when she drank this wine. She would just put on the TV or call a friend or anything, but this bottle of wine was open. And it just brings me back to that time, just that time of no problems, that mm-hmm. time of safety, that time of just feeling whatever you felt.
And is it important for you to always go back to that time continuously, or are there certain moments when you say, I need to get this wine to help me get back there? Or, how often, when do you take that journey back?
I take that journey back every time I have to celebrate success. Mm-hmm. Because...
And what's success to you?
Success to me is, for example, I had the trip to Kenya. Mm-hmm. I come from a self-thought way of getting into film. And I did something that I always dreamt of doing. Mm-hmm. So when that film was finished, that's when you try to thank whatever energy brought you here.
Yeah.
And I think that's the time when I'll just call my aunt. Hey, Tante Lucia, do you have one of those bottles? I have something to celebrate.
Fantastic.
And then just, sit on your balcony and just realize that you've done something that you've always wanted to do, and it worked.
Oh, great! And that success. So so one of the first times, or one of the time you toasted, of course, was that trip to Kenya. Take us on that journey through that whole procedure. What did you film? And how you personally went. How your personal journey in Kenya was.
It was nothing short from amazing. Mm-hmm. Just imagine, even hearing the words. Hey, you're going to make a documentary about the socio-economic benefits for Maasai people in southern Kenya. You're going.
And it was your first time, right? Africa? Or?
No. I went to Africa. I went to Ghana.
Oh, right.
I went to Cameroon. Because I'm a very curious person. So when I was 20, I was like, I know I'm a Surinamese person. I know I was born there, but this is not my history. Mm-hmm. So what's the safest country I can go to just explore? I just took a pin, boom. My girlfriend at the time was doing also doing her research and looking for a way to do voluntary work.
Yeah.
She went to Ghana.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's go.
I bet
let's
it was.
explore.
I've been to Ghana as well, and I bet you really got that, that story and understanding of the history struggle, but also the joy as well.
The fact that you recognize facial structures. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's enough. Yeah. There's an ocean in between the place you think you're from, and the place you're actually from, and you recognize people's facial structures in there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, imagine being 20. Going there and recognizing people that could have been your cousins.
You traveled throughout up north slightly and
Accra, Takoradi.
Yeah.
Then went to Kumasi.
Yeah.
Sunyani, stayed there for a week, and from there we went to Bosumtwe and other places around.
Did it also change your perception or view of the world when you came back?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it completely changed everything. So for me, that trip to Ghana was just basically taking steps back into your own history, going from the things you understand to the things you now get to understand and everything that's new. I mean, even just certain cultural practices.
Yeah.
Banana chips, like banana chips,
Oh, I know. Nigerians.
Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic.
Groundnut soup.
Exactly.
Same.
Red.
Yes.
That's it.
I mean, all those things are one and the same, and you get to understand that it's a melting pot.
But were you surprised about Ghana? Because I would suspect, if people have an image of Africa in their head, or West Africa, you could say, were you surprised what you came across, or were you, in a sense, through your girlfriend then and your friendships with certain people, that you did get that understanding of what West Africa was?
There's a lot of cultural bias that you have to get through.
Right.
There's the people, if you haven't been there, and the people in your direct environment tell you how it is, you'll have to get through that bias to actually see. So I think you can't be anything else but surprised, because the bias about the differences culturally between Africa and Suriname is huge.
Yeah.
Surinamese people don't even look at, they think their history starts whenever they were brought into Suriname.
Yeah.
So then the bias about Africa is that it's different from who we are.
Yes. But there's so many similarities, so many cultural elements.
But there's so many similarities and so many cultural overeenkomsten. God.
Similarity.
It's just so many cultural similarities.
Yeah.
And for you to be 19, 20 years old,
okay,
hearing the stories about the people in your direct environment, it gets you biased. And then booking that ticket and just going, you'll have to go through this bias first. And then you can't be anything else but amazed and surprised if you go.
But how were the cultural differences between West and East Africa here? So, a few years later, you're off to Kenya.
Yeah.
So what was how was that differentiation between the two cultures?
Because I went to Ghana and I went to Cameroon.
Yeah.
So I thought I had an idea of what African culture is. But now you're going to Kenya and Tanzania after, and you see this influence of the Silk Route.
Yeah.
You see people eating chapati, where in East Africa, where people are eating fufu. In West Africa.
What's chapati? I know fufu, but what's chapati?
Chapati is it's like a flatbread.
It's influence from India.
Yeah, it's influence from India. It's like
Sri Lanka.
Is it sour? Is it sour bread?
No, it's not sour. I think it's based on corn.
All right.
Yeah. But it's a flatbread, and then there's a stew that comes with it.
All right.
And it's incredibly delicious. Seriously, it's good. But the differences between East and West are the differences that I saw are more or less food. Food-wise, you really see this influence coming from this Silk Route.
Yeah.
So you see coming from India into West Africa. The landscape is completely different.
Yeah.
In Cameroon, I was in a rural hospital in the middle of the jungle. In Kenya, you were in a Maasai village in savannah, so it's completely open. You drive in East Africa, you drive your truck or 4x4, and there's like giraffes popping up like fucking kittens. You have in the Netherlands, you see a cat, you're like, oh, a cat. And then in East Africa, you're like, oh, a giraffe. I already saw one today, twice. It's this crazy big difference between, not a big difference, but there is a difference between East and West Africa. But one thing that's from East Africa to West Africa to Suriname is the perception and the approach to life. It's the same everywhere.
And that is?
It's just c'est la vie. It's just this open approach to whatever's coming.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that because it's a Western perception if you say that we have this indifference towards time, but we have a certain way of going with the flow.
Yeah.
We have a certain way of just not worrying about tomorrow or the day after. just worrying about the things we think are good instead of the things we think are bad. Because the Western perception on it would be, oh, we don't have any homes, or we don't have this and we don't have that, so it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now this African perception would be, oh, but we have food, we have music,
yeah,
and we have a lot of people and we can dance, so why not dance?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's one big uniformity between East Africa, West Africa, and then going across the pond to countries like Guyana and Suriname.
Yeah.
Cool.
So in Kenya, so you're there for Justdiggit, right? And what is it? What's the storyline that you're trying to tell people about the land and all that? So how do you turn that into an interesting story?
I think the story in itself is already interesting. Mm-hmm. Everybody in this world is coping with this idea of climate change, and here we need communications to make it a reality. Mm-hmm. But there, it's a reality.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about drought, 80% of cattle dying, mm-hmm. which is directly linked as a food source for these people.
Exactly.
I mean, there's not a story to be made up here.
No.
This is just documentary. You just ask the people what their experiences are compared to what they used to be compared to now, and you just find out so many things mm-hmm. that have changed. So I think there's no making or creating a story here.
Yep.
It's just getting there and showing reality, and then showing the beauty of it, mm-hmm. but then also showing the challenges of it.
So this project was really life-changing, right?
Yeah.
And then we have the other one, the first one, which went viral, which was also life-changing.
Also a life-changing project, yeah.
Are there any others you can mention that are milestones?
I think the adventure with me and Christian and Boudewijn Grammer, that was, there's so many milestones in there. It's from making the first film to actually, getting familiar with the business side of things.
Right.
And, it's the three of you, you're trying to make it work in some way, but then you're so different, but then you're so the same in thought.
Right.
And what are some of those lessons? You're saying you're learning so much about business, right?
Yeah.
So being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So there's not really a handbook. I mean, there are millions of books you can read to being an entrepreneur, but I don't believe that. I think it's a very personal thing. Yeah. What would you say are some of those learning points on that journey that really formed you as an entrepreneur to make you, in fact, successful in your eyes?
If I look at the learning, the points that would really make people a quote unquote successful mm-hmm. entrepreneur is having the ability to see things where opportunity isn't. Mm-hmm. So, for example, somebody could look at a piece of land and in that person's head could see a shelter for animals, for example. Mm-hmm. And then 15 other people don't see that. They don't see that chance. Like, it's barren, you can't grow any grass, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But sticking to that idea and, going for it, knowing you don't have the meat yet, but you have the backbone. Yeah. You'll grow the meat. Yeah. You'll grow the meat, but you have the backbone, you have the structure, the base structure to make it work. Mm-hmm. I think being able to filter that, I think that's what makes you a successful entrepreneur, because people always say, you just follow your dreams, blah, blah, blah. But I think, of course, you have to follow your dreams, but there's a lot of other things that you have to have, which mm-hmm. is you have to be able to have this wittiness of being able to see your vision, but then also have the wittiness to be able to move in a certain way to make it come true. Because you can have the vision, but have no idea how to reach it. And that's the difference in between the person that sees barren land and sees this mm-hmm. animal shelter.
And is that also about making the right choices? I mean, do you, seeing success coming in and doing movies and winning awards and so on, of course, people come to you to create for them.
Yeah.
Are you selective in who you work with, or do you challenge them to change the way they want to create their piece?
I think it's a bit of both. You're being selective at at one side, but also trying to change people's perceptions on the other side, and also keeping the opportunities open to learn more and get better yourself.
Yeah.
Because I think, in my case, I'm still learning. I'm still trying. I'm still going forward. I'm still, I have a nice boat, but I'm trying to keep it pushing, keep it going. Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes to being selective, you shouldn't be too selective, because you should be open to the opportunities that you get. If somebody throws you a bone, do something with it. Don't just cast it away and be like, yeah, thanks, but nah. And that's the weirdness I'm talking about. Yeah. If somebody throws you a bone, see if you can do something with it. Mm-hmm. Maybe bend it to your idea or to your will. Yeah.
Because that happened with one of your latest works is the Young Capital ad. Let's say that I think was running on TV for a while and so on. And I'd say was it there that you could of course gone the traditional route of an ad, let's say. But here, and I believe in all your pieces that you make, music is essential.
Yes.
And it's a core piece of every video piece you do. Yeah. With Young Capital, was that something where you got the bone, but you still chewed on it to make it a bit more in the essence of how you see?
Young Capital was for me. I got the bone. I worked with the bone. And I think Young Capital was a big opportunity for me to learn. Mm-hmm. Because, you've been doing these nice campaigns. And then this, Paul Geuzenbroek did the last campaign, which he worked with Kanye West. Mm-hmm. So for me, Young Capital was a big opportunity to learn. Even though, that's what I'm saying, you have the backbone, you'll grow to meat. Mm-hmm. And if somebody just throws you that, you work with it. You go for it. So Young Capital for me was an opportunity to learn, but also an opportunity to show what I can do at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think it's important to see things where other people don't. Work with every opportunity you get. But I think the most important thing is stay open for places and spaces you can learn in. Mm-hmm. And try constantly to be not the smartest person in your room. Just move to the next one. See what flaws you have and then go. Yeah. I think Young Capital was a good example of that. It's just me learning, okay, this is your first big commercial, first big campaign. You have to fill Paul Geuzenbroek's shoes. Do it. Yeah. Go for it.
Were you nervous?
Yes, all the time, yeah. Also, because I was working with Herc, and the guys of Herc are in my eyes, they're big. Mm-hmm. You're trying to make something that they'll say, hey.
And who's Herc? Just
Emilio de Haan, Rogier de Bruin, and Niels Heijmans. Mm-hmm. And they're I think one of the best creatives in the Netherlands right now, because they understand the culture that I come from. Yeah, and that in my eyes makes them probably one of the few ones at that level that understand. Mm-hmm. And for them to pick you to work with them, there's somebody handing you a big bone. So I really wanted to show them that I can do this, I got this. And of course you run, you fall, you're doing things wrong, you're doing things right, and then your end product, you're like, oh. Yeah.
And what were some of those falling moments? I'm curious, because with every success there's failure, right?
Yes, of course.
So I'd like to know kind of, you could specifically talk about, this piece, or you could talk about in the past. What are those failures that you came across that made you learn and grow?
It's in my character to be a humble person. It's in my character to make myself very small and insignificant. Mm. And I think that's what I learned. It's like, no, you're the director. You come from a place of power. Mm-hmm. And that's what they taught me. They had to teach me that I come from a place of power. You have a talent. Mm-hmm. And this is also, you can calculate that back to the culture where you're from. The people in my direct neighborhood, they didn't have an example of somebody working in this creative industry. Mm-hmm. So when you propose that, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to make films. Like, yeah, okay, no. So then you humble yourself because you're making it work by yourself. And then every time you come into a bigger room filled with bigger people, you know, you humble yourself first. Mm-hmm. And they taught me that I shouldn't. You know, just be who you are. Say what you want to say. Drive the process. Tell the people that this is going to be good. And that's, I think, you know, not failure, but it's a good moment to realize who you are and what you can do.
Exactly. And at the same moment, I guess, lifting everybody up around you,
yes.
taking that lead.
Yeah.
And, you know, and supporting those others who
yes.
might be in the same shoes as you that are humble and you want to bring them up.
Yeah. I think that's the most one of the most valuable lessons that I learned. It's just I've known you for now, 7-8 years?
Something like that,
yeah. And I mean, you knew how I was at the very beginning. I was a very, small, humble person. And I'm still that person, but now I'll just still tell the direction I want to go. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, you also tried to push me like, hey, Safi, don't be so humble. You're good. You know what you're doing. I was like, nah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, no.
But look where you are. I mean,
this is where we're going, and this is what we're doing.
I mean, recently you've got an award. You're named, one of the top creators, one of the top 50 creators by Het Financieel Dagblad, the Financial Times of Holland. I mean, how does that feel? I mean, that must be, helping you in your self-confidence to go out there. Of course,
yeah, it helps. It helps when people recognize you mm-hmm. and acknowledge you in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I look up to the guys from Daily Paper, for example, because, they've created this space in which they can do whatever they want, in which they can do whatever they like and they want. And they've created this financial space in which they can just go and create and make. Mm-hmm. And in film, I think, I'm not there yet. Mm-hmm. I'm not in that space yet. So I'm still, learning and going. And of course, it's nice that Financieel Dagblad says, hey, you're one of the top 50 this year. And, Genootschap voor Reclame says you're the most interesting talent. Yeah, that's cool.
And are you then at that moment, are you thinking, wait a minute, I also need to work on Safi the brand? Is that something that you're busy with, or is it more that you want your work to speak for you?
A bit of both. Mm-hmm. Because, work sometimes doesn't say enough. Yeah. And, I have to sometimes be able to speak my own mind and try to steer this creative industry, the Dutch creative industry, into a certain, or create a space in this Dutch creative industry in which my ideas and my place gets acknowledgement. And I don't think that you can reach that only through your work. Yeah. I think you have to, talk. And also, I'm not trying to brag, but you have to be able to give other people a place and a sense of belonging within the creative industry, because they want to laugh about commercials that's about, for example, Nigerians in the Netherlands or Surinamese people in the Netherlands, because we don't see that. Yeah. And that's the space I'm trying to create. And that's also what the people from Herc did. Mm-hmm. But they did it 7-8 years ago. Yeah. They made the commercial, like, you saka saka boy. And everybody was laughing. It was like, wow, this is, it feels genuine. It feels Surinamese. Wow, I can laugh at a commercial. And we haven't had that laugh in like 10 years. Yeah. So that's the space I'm after.
So you want to bring that back, but in the new context of today, let's say.
Let's make a commercial where we battle over who has the best jollof.
We don't need that. That's Nigerians. Let's just get that right. So the Nigerians have the best jollof rice in the world, but let's not go into that. But so now you're busy. You've done Young Capital. And, you've told me there's a new project, Rainmaker. Yeah. What is that? And there's a to-be-announced collaborators. I don't know if you can tell us that here, but it'd be interesting to know what Rainmaker is and is a documentary.
So Rainmakers is the documentary that in 2015 we started with. Rainmakers at first was a working title. I called it Rainmakers, and then the people at Justdiggit were like, oh, this is a pretty good title to go for in the film. Mm-hmm. made Rainmakers. One was a success, won an award in California, made the second, made the third. And now we're talking and looking how to expand this idea of Rainmakers into this new space. And that's the space of a Netflix, or the space of maybe Videoland, or the space of HBO. I can't say who the partner is. I can't say who we're doing it with, but we're thinking about how to get it to another level of audience.
And so you can't say who the partner is, but it's someone up there.
Yeah.
Is it that organization or person approached you, or do you see a vision and you go to that vision and you try and chase and get that platform?
I think it's a bit of both. And I think it's also, at the same time, it's a very relevant subject. I think everybody in the Western world is reflecting on their relationship with their environment. So it's also a logical step that these topics reach a bigger audience.
What are the topics? But
climate change. The topics are just the relationship that we have with our natural surroundings.
All right.
And I've always fought for these topics. I've always said who I am just by speaking my mind. So it's you have this go-getter mindset, but at the same time, it's a relevant, it's a relevant topic, and people are asking for it, especially in a time like this. We're reconsidering our relationship with our environment.
Yeah.
So it's I don't think me as a person has been a lot of influence, but I think I'm the right person to work on these projects with.
And do you think that that's really where your path is taking you? So you've done some creative pieces, you've done advertising, and now really documentary to bring, a purpose. So do you really see that your path is taking you on that direction where you want to tell that story, those documentaries with purpose more? Not that you're not going to get the work, but is that really where more your heart lies and where you want to grow your expertise?
This is a question that's asked a lot. I think the future is right in between those two. I think if you would compare it to the digitalization of media, that was a marketing word at first, and now it's an integral part of every agency. I think the same thing is happening with this idea of purpose, and the space of purpose now is this documentary space in which we're visiting these hard-hit countries. But I think in the near future, purpose will be at the fundament of agencies, at the fundament of brands.
Because the purpose of brands, so to go into that, I mean, you have brands that just need to sell a product. How important is that purpose to help them? I mean, how will it play a role? I
think we should change that question. I think when you start a brand, don't start it from the idea of I want to sell a product. Start it from the idea I want to help society, and then purpose will help you. If you start it from the idea I want to sell a product, you'll always have to find ways to sell it, and you won't bind an audience in your mission. But if you turn that question around as how can I help society, then you will always have people that sympathize.
And do you have an example of brands that you feel have done that really well?
Patagonia is the perfect example. It's like, they make clothing, but they're the biggest advocate of for example, landscape restoration and climate change. So,
and that's from this onset of the brand. It wasn't a CSR PR project.
Exactly. It's fundamentally it's been a fundamental part of Patagonia ever since. And I think just look at the way that millennials and Generation Z, Generation Z especially, how they're consuming. if you look at how the number of vegetarians and vegans have quadrupled in the last, I think, decade, you'll see that there's big changes in our pattern of consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And those changes have been initiated culturally. So we've changed our culture of consumption,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sure that there's no more room for brands that don't have this sense of purpose in them.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the 90s, where you would have a board with an ad on it, with a big house, red car, good-looking man, and a big word success on it, and people would assume that that's in fact a form of success. They can't talk back.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't any social control within advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And if you compare it now with this idea of digitalization and the spaces and places where we run ads, there's social control. So now somebody that is a vegetarian bases his consumption off of his own idea,
Mm-hmm.
instead of his idea being altered by a brand.
Yeah. So you're saying that a brand should also talk to individuals as an individual and not as a mass.
Yes. And
Works.
also, it's not should. They have to,
Mm-hmm.
or else you'll lose your position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this as if I'm some messiah telling brands, hey, I'm just looking at the social sciences behind it, and I'm seeing significant changes in our paradigm, our way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
that steer the course of advertising
Mm-hmm.
and steer the course of brands. And this has been happening ever since the Industrial Revolution. We have changed
Mm-hmm.
massively, and we're in another one. So it's not about should we, or it's not about this choice dilemma. It's about, what Darwin said. It's not the smartest or the strongest that survives. It's the one most adaptable to change.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
And you'd say that that's the biggest change that we're facing.
Yes. After digitalization, I think this idea of purpose, this integral idea of purpose within a brand,
Mm-hmm.
is definitely one of the biggest changes that we're seeing right now. And I see that in the advertising world. We're trying to give it this trendy term,
Mm-hmm.
as we did with digitalization. But if we go back to the year 2000, there was a person that told Elon Musk, hey, we're not going to be looking around the internet for people's addresses. We have the yellow pages for that. I think about how stupid that sounds now.
Exactly.
So now in 20 years, we'll have this same conversation, and we'll say, yeah, now we're saying, okay, should we change? And then in 20 years, we're like, yeah, the brands that didn't, yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm 99.9% sure that this is not just a change in advertising. This is a change in social paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that advertising can do is ride it the best way they can.
And that's where your focus is going to be, is the advertising, the storytelling in that way.
My focus will be in getting the most purposeful brands their rightful place.
And is there a space there for brands that don't have a purpose, or are you saying that they have to find it quickly for them to survive, to adapt, to grow?
I'm not dictating what I wouldn't dictate what brands should do, but I would look at examples.
Mm-hmm.
And historical examples. For example, who didn't go with digitalization, for example? Bart Smith, Intertoys, Vroom and Dreesman.
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore.
No.
So, what I'm saying is a brand that doesn't have this idea of purpose yet either should reconsider its fundamentals.
Yeah.
Or try to cultivate some form of sincere purpose, because we have radars now. We know what brands are and aren't sincere, and social control is a thing. You know, if you look at this Corona crisis, every brand tried to hop on and off.
Yeah.
But we kind of the audience quickly saw that.
Right.
Oh yeah, you're just trying to, you know, go with this wave of the coronavirus, and you're trying to show your brand and use the coronavirus for your own good, but it doesn't work.
What about your purpose, by the way? Because before we were talking about, or you said something about daily paper.
Yeah.
That they created a space financially or just a space where they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
What do you need to create that space for yourself? Or how does it look like? What does it look like?
That space would be, you know, having a laugh over a commercial about the best jollof rice. That would be that. Trust me, that would be that space. Because I think if you look at the way countries, and especially the Netherlands, are built up culturally, the advertising world does not represent that yet.
Yes.
And I think, you know, you should never point fingers, and always look back culturally and historically and try to explain. And my explanation would be simply that before, I think, the digital DSLR, before that time, cameras were too expensive for people of color or people of a different culture to be able to afford them and make and create.
Mm-hmm.
Those cameras came about 2007, 2008. And that's where, you know, that revolution started, of making video clips, of, you know, young people from young cultures making their own content, telling their own stories. So I wouldn't say that it's misrepresented. It's just that we're coming. We started 10 years ago. We're coming. And I'm not saying I'm at the front line of it, but I'm one of the first that hit the beach.
But this goes back, I think, to what you were saying about traveling to Africa. The first time I traveled there, I went to Ghana, and I saw a T-Mobile commercial.
Yeah.
And it looked totally different than what we're used to here.
Yeah.
But that changed my view, perception.
Yeah.
A lot. And
Yeah.
then when I came back here and looked around again, I was like, oh man, we're missing something. Same goes for going to Asia, like going to Japan, going to Hong Kong, whatever. And then when you when you're back in Holland and you look at all the things that all the people there are in advertising, it's you're missing something.
You're missing something, and the thing you're missing is it has value,
right?
Because people look at Maurice. I mean, he has the buying power to get whatever product I'll throw at him, and I'm sure that if I make that Jollof commercial and it's a Nigerian brand, he'll buy it.
Right.
So the people that are in these groups, that are in these culture groups, they have buying power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And by not representing them in your ad, you're just simply missing out on their buying power.
Yeah.
So for me, that's I think a very important it's a very important subject.
So it's you would say that just showing diversification, you know, in video, and you know, that's the way to go. And I mean, you know, like I said, I think the footsteps have been made. Yeah. And you see it differently in different cultures according to how far they are in that acceptance of diversification. Yeah.
I think that discussion is just only getting started, but also that the majority of creatives of color are just relatively young.
But aren't you afraid but won't it also bring about the anti-diversification movement, you could say? Not getting too political on this, but you know what I mean, is that, you know, you're always going to get a movement against to say, no, we need to kind of, you know, that's...
And the thing is that if we go back to the social sciences behind it, at every paradigm change, there's a resistance.
Yes.
But that resistance only fuels the change, because change wouldn't be actual change without this form of resistance. So basically everybody that's going against this change is fueling it, because you're fueling the discussion about it. And the discussion about it is what drives the change.
And it's also what's needed, of course.
And it's also what's needed. So for me, all these cultural discussions, I love to see them.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they're being fueled.
To me, it feels so outdated, like the cultural discussions, because
Yeah.
like the friends I have and the people I keep around me, it's not an issue
No.
at all.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you look at the people that resist, they're not in our category.
That's the thing, right? I mean, we all keep our own. We all keep our own group, and because they're like us, right? Because they're
Right.
people we can communicate with, and we also have to be aware of what's out there. I believe, and it's, there's a lot to do and a lot to change.
Yes. And I think
And diversification is not only in color; it's also in
gender,
class.
class,
it's gender,
everything,
class,
yeah.
everything. So diversification is also just showing also,
I'm talking about the female
yes.
people that work with cameras.
Mm-hmm.
That's also another movement within advertising that should be empowered. So when I'm talking about diversification, I'm talking about the whole spectrum of it. And I think the creatives that are diverse, they've just been able to start when the DSLR came. And I think it's a very young population of creatives that have ideas but can't find the right footing or find the right funding yet. And I think I'm blessed to be one of them that, made it work a little.
Cool.
So now you're translating your vision into something visual, right? Or do you also have plans or ideas to translate that to a product or a service, other type of service?
No, not yet. I don't have an idea of product or a service. I've just focused on creating this space for the people that started when the DSLR came.
Right.
They have to be funneled somewhere. Because what we're seeing right now is this cherry picking of people and creators that, confined to the ideas that we have now. But I think that somewhere to be able to feed this stream of creative people coming in, they need a space and a place to just have their work seen, get the opportunity to work with a bigger budget.
Yeah.
See what the dynamics are in these processes. How does it work politically? How does it work? For the first time, people are working with producers now, so they need that space, and I think that's also my responsibility. If I have the opportunity, I should give it to others, and that's also what I'm actually doing.
Cool. Oh yeah, when you just walked in, you talked about that you just pitched for a certain job.
Yeah.
And that work doesn't stop. So coronavirus didn't infect your work or
no,
project?
not really.
Not at all?
There are some very strict rules on actually producing film now. So you have to cope with all these rules that kind of confine you in what you can or can't do. But other than that, no, I'm not really seeing. I'm seeing, of course, people that I would work with are now okay, can we move it to June or July?
Yeah.
But I'm still writing pitches. I'm still writing treatments. I'm still working with brands. We just try to figure out when can we shoot.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Because normally there would be the conversation would go okay, we need certain content and we need it by yesterday or
we need it
last week and now it's okay, we need it in 2 months or maybe 3 months.
But I think it's a good thing because capitalism is no longer a driver of our well-being.
Right.
And then we call it a crisis. So for me, and of course also my girl, because she has a restaurant, I said, the world is at a standstill. Let's just stand still as well. And see, because sometimes you just don't just work in the way you did. Just stop, look, and see if you can adapt. And that's also something I'm doing right now. It's if I would worry about the corona crisis, making sure that I'm out of work or whatever, I wouldn't be adaptable to change. If the world stopped, you stop. and then you go see where you can.
But it's also finding opportunity in this time, right? So that's something, that's something in my role where I work. It's about, looking at this not as a crisis, but a moment of opportunity. How can we make ourselves visible much more than the competition? What we've been doing for 10 years is actually what everyone else is now only starting to do.
Yes.
So I think it's also about using this moment and saying, okay, where's that opportunity? Like you said, looking for that space that no one else is in, and how do we fit that space? And
exactly.
That's what a moment like the Corona crisis gives everyone, I believe.
I think you should grasp that moment.
And of course, it's terrible for people who lose their jobs and have a family and a mortgage. But again, it's about it helps to push you also to think about, okay, what's the most valuable in my life?
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. Is that new T-shirt important, or is actually just my kids at home the most important, that I can feed them every day?
Yes,
and that's what you focus on, I believe.
I think you're completely right. I think that's what it's about, and I think looking at.
So is that a new jacket or old jacket?
This is an old jacket. The thing I got on now is old.
All right.
No, but looking at this Corona crisis, or looking at this point in time, I just see the opportunity. I just smell the opportunity everywhere. If you can master the skeleton crew at this point,
right,
you're in for a lot of work.
Yeah.
just a tip to everybody listening.
Skeleton crew. I guess that's a
small
crew.
7-8 man crew that can do multiple things on set. So you have somebody that does, for example, both AD and gaffer.
Yeah, but the crazy thing, like when we started, maybe you as well, like we started like that. Because the director had to be the producer and also do a bit of lighting. So that's like going back to the old days.
Yes. So you're going back to the beginning, indeed. Yeah. Fact.
Yeah.
So when this crisis is over, so let's talk about 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And I know you also probably get this question a lot of times, but what is it? Because you said you also want to offer that, pave that way. Do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years actually fulfilling a role where you give people the platform, those who haven't had the opportunity, that you make storytelling and creativity and filmmaking more accessible for them? Do you see yourself taking that role?
Yeah, I would love to, in 5 or maybe in 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be 45 years old.
Is that 10 or 15 years, 45?
That's 15. 15.
Yeah,
but I
young
love
at heart still.
I'd love to be the person that indeed has a selection of people who I can just give the reins to, and be proud of the fact that I created this space and laugh at commercials for once.
About jollof rice.
Yeah. Just laugh of,
Yeah.
Just have this recognizable part of myself in something like a commercial. Mm-hmm. I think because I'm not specifically focused on making commercials, but I noticed that it's in commercials where this cultural bridge isn't made. And I'd love to make it, and I'd love to be like, I know the director, I knew him ever since he was little, and he made me laugh.
Yeah.
That would be that would be good. In 10 or 15 years, I'd love to
open the doors. Cool. Perfect. Well, I think I'll leave it at that, because that's always looking into the future where you're going to be.
Yeah.
Safi, thank you very much for being our first guest.
No problem at all.
And I hope and I hope work is going to come to you, and you're going to do well for yourself, and enjoy a nice bottle of wine, of course.
Yes.
Thank you very much for telling us about brands, your brand, who you are, and why purpose means so much to you.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you for having me, and it's always fun to talk.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Cool.